I reside in an apartment near the city. It's a 9-level building that has 40 units and 50% owner occupied. I'm a member of the Council of Owners. Each unit has a dedicated parking bay. The building has 4 visitor parking bays, and our building rules and guidelines specify who may use these bays and for how long. However, the rules are not included in the bylaws. The only reference in the bylaw is the clause that reads as follows: a proprietor, resident or occupier of a lot shall not stand or park any motor vehicle or other vehicle upon common property except with the written approval of the strata company. The area has a notice clearly displayed and referring the City Council law under which the parking is controlled. We experience ongoing problems with both owners and tenants parking in the area. We also have issues with other outside people parking in the bays for extended periods. The sentiment of the chairman of the Council of Owners is that there is very little that can be done. He believes that whilst it's bad faith for an owner or tenant to park in these areas, they are legally entitled to do so. It has been suggested that bollards be erected and controlled by a full-time caretaker, but this is onerous. It's further been suggested that the bays be leased to residents on a rotation basis for 6 months and that they are charged a monthly fee for the use of the bays. These funds would be paid to the Strata Reserve Fund. Are there any formal avenues that can be followed to prevent the improper use of the bays? Are residents permitted to use the bays? And would the strata be allowed to lease the bays to residents on a rotation basis and charge for the use?
Okay, so the first question, are there any formal avenues that can be followed to prevent improper use of the bays? There is already a bylaw that says that you can't park on a common property or obstruct common property. It is a very simple bylaw, and expanding on that bylaw to have a more detailed car parking requirement and use of the visitor bays would be beneficial. If they've entered into an agreement with the local council, depends what local council it is. You're in a city, localities generally allow for the ability to put up the signs and then call a ranger to site to issue an infringement. And we find that that's the best way to manage it. But you do you should work with the owners around and the residents around that policing of the bays and make sure it's clearly explained to them. But the strata company can restrict the use of the bays. It is intended that they're for visitors, not for permanent residents to park in. I think being a little bit more engaged with the local council around the policing the bays would be beneficial. The next bullet point, are residents owners permitted to use these bays? Well, when the scheme's approved, there's a requirement, probably under the development application, and when the development approval is issued, that the scheme has visitor car parking bays. So the removal of those car parking bays for the visitors would potentially require a development application to the local council, and it would be intended that those bays are exclusively designated for visitors. So I would say that the residents aren't permitted to park in the bays. You do need to have visitor bays for when you have guests come around and visit you within your lot, and you need somewhere for them to park. So you wouldn't want them taken up by residents parking there full time. The last bullet point, would the strata be allowed to lease these bays to residents on a rotational basis and charge for the use? By and large, a lot of schemes, the car parking bays are actually common property. So a lot of schemes do actually lease their car parking bays. But I would suggest that taking out the visitor bays to the scheme would be complicated it would be detrimental, I believe, to the visitors coming to the scheme. And I would encourage them not to lease up the visitor car parking bays and take them out of use for those people coming to visit them.